Alright guys, we're back today again. Um, as you guys may have noticed, I haven't been active in the last 10 days, 11 days thereabouts. I actually did post, I did come on live twice. The first time I was on the move and I was pretty sick. And as you may know, it's as actually it's still quite ill. So for the first yesterday, I believe I also came online. I was having issues with my editor, and coupled with me not feeling the best, I just thought it was best for me to chill out a little bit and you know take a break and come back today. But now it just look like my editor is working decently enough, and I can do some streaming today and continue with the work we've been doing. So I'm excited to be here. I hope you guys are doing okay. And we've actually done most of what we need to do for this PR, in the sense that in one of the previous streams that I had to delete, I was actually explaining what I had done previously because from the last stream, I believe I did some stuff upstream because I was flying, I believe, and I wanted to do something productive. And of course, I couldn't stream while on air, so I decided to implement some stuff. As you can see, I'm very proud. I'm very proud of what we're building here. I'm pretty, I'm pretty excited to have something that I can say is one of a kind. As you can see, right here we have Query Turbo. And what you will notice is that this supports writing a very complex query. Here we have a query um, definition, which is like a create statement, and that is assigned to a variable. Here we're not assigning or binding to a variable. We have if else statements being supported and being checked at compile time. Um, what else? 1 second, guys. And we even support nested if else statement. I need to check that. Add that, include that in the example. As you can see, we support like for loop and even nested for loop. And you can just keep nesting as much as you want. And look at the select statement. We support ranges, inclusive, exclusive, and what have you. These are like very complex queries we're writing at compile time, and it feels as though we're writing normal Rust. And you're gonna notice something here also where we've got balance, right? If we actually go to the definition of balance, you see that balance is actually a variable within um, the query. We can think of this as a parameter, right? And the nice thing about this, it's not just like this is different from if we have it outside of here. They are completely different. As you can see, this generates a create statement, right? But when we do this inside of here, it generates actually a let statement. And 1 second, I need to all right, I'm back again. So as you can see, that actually does generate a let statement. And the beauty of this is, even within this complex query, we can do like a traversal. So the way we do that is, if you look at balance here, balance one, we use the method with path, and what this allows us to do is traverse the balance tree. So we know we have the balance object or struct, and with that we have the field amount, right? If we mistype this, you see it's going to error out. As you can see, it says no field. So this allows us to check everything and make sure we're using the right thing. So if we type in something like, I don't know, it's not going to work because the field doesn't exist. And for in case you're curious, what this E actually means is empty. So you can even filter. Imagine if you have like an array of balance, you can filter this edge. You can use a where clause. I can even use index. Maybe you want to take the first one. Maybe you want to take the sixth, which is the fifth index, right? You can do things like this. I can even use the index function, helper function, and do something like this. You can do a lot of crazy stuff, and those things you can find more examples in the book I'm writing for this. So I think this is quite dope actually. So one thing also, you can have parentheses here, or you can do away with it. You know, both are supported. You can decide to leave it, or you can decide to include it. So there are two things I would like to check right now. I would like to see if nested if else statement is supported already. I believe oh yeah, it is. As you can see here, we have like if nested within this, which means we actually support that. One thing I've been thinking of is, do we want to enforce the usage of semicolon after a control flow like if statement or like a for loop, or do we want to make it optional? I believe that's something we need to decide, because without this I believe it's gonna error right now, but of course we can make it optional if we wanted to. But I digress. One thing I've been looking at supporting, if I don't already support, is being able to, for example, rather than having an expression within this, like a vector, imagine if we have like something like this, and you want to do let names equals that, and you just want to do something like this. I believe this is not yet supported, and that's one thing I'm looking at. So if we go to like for loop, yeah, actually, so what we could do is, after parsing this in, as you can see, this iterable expects an expression. And in that context, I would have actually expected names to be an expression, but I'm not quite sure why that doesn't work. A second. Okay, I've been having some crazy code, so I hope you guys bear with me. I'm trying to do my best here. So anyway, I would have expected names in that like context to be an expression, since you can bind it to a variable, another variable, you can return it and whatnot. However, if that isn't supported that way, so let's see, expression, path, So one thing we can do is, let's say for iterable we have like enum and we call that iterable, and yeah, it could be an expression identifier. Thank you. So we implement like a parse trait for that. Let's take parse. Implement that, and rather than taking just an expression here, we actually take iterable. Yep. So one thing we could do is we can pick actually what we want to do is we want to pick see if it's an ident, just ident any. Let's say pick any, then we parse it as an identifier. Then we parse that as an identifier, otherwise we parse it as an expression. So let's see, when it's an expression, we just want to bind it. I believe we want to do the same thing to it. So iterable, let's implement 2 tokens to it for that. 2 tokens. So essentially so in this kind of scenario we would want to have like chain or let me think, if it's a variable we want to parse it, we want to bind that, but if it's a variable it actually depends. We might want to do something like if we're using name, if it's external, let's say we've got something like names, like we'll do like for name in names, right? In this kind of scenario, names could be from within the query table or block. So it could be from like a less statement, or it could be from outside. So let's say it's outside. Yeah, outside for loop is or inside for loop. So when they are outside and inside, they are completely different stuff, and they are handled differently. So let's look. If it's within this is gonna be like more like a parameter, so like this. So in that case, we don't need to do an extra binding. We could just build this as something like this. But if it's external, we don't want to do this actually if it's external. So how can we deterministically say if it's a less statement at compile time or if it's external? So one thing we can also do is either ways we just decide to parameterize it, give it some random parameter, let's say param something 1 2 3, right? and then we bind this. So we have a binding. We have our bindings, and one of them is like it's gonna be, let's say, param 1 2 3 4. It's gonna be names, but in this case, names we actually evaluate to if it's within. If within, names we evaluate to names. If extra outside, it's gonna be a vector. Yeah. So either ways, I think binding it is legitimate. It's a legitimate thing to do. Oh my god. I don't like how I feel right now with this code. I hope you guys don't mind. I'm trying to. So that's what we need to solve for right now. Let's see what we can do. I'm trying to make my stream as closer to reality as possible. And one of those things in reality is humans get sick. So I want you to see me also while being sick, right? So if we have an expression, we just take that. If we have an identifier, we take that. However, let's check the for loop builder. It looks like. Let's see our example. So for something in this, then takes the block. So I would have expected less statement to work there. So what we're gonna do is let's see, there's an error. Yeah, I'm just gonna restart just to be sure that the issue is now with Rust Analyzer.
Right.
Just gotta be sure. Once we're done with this, what else could we do in this PR? I think we can just write a few tests, check nested if else, and probably just call it a day from there. We can always implement new stuff subsequently, but I think this is probably good enough for this PR because this PR has been open for a while now. Granted, for most of that time, I wasn't working on it because I was ill. So this is still loading. Let's give it a few seconds more. Let's take that away. Um, okay, it's looking promising, which is why I like restarting my ID just to be sure. Um, yeah, I think it's actually looking. Uh, I don't know. I really catch cold and flu, but that's what you have to deal with sometimes. Mm, okay, good. So as you can see, this is a less statement within this. If we would do, so let's take it out first and let's see what happens. The beauty of this is still gonna work. At least it should. So this works. This should also work. So let's check this. I'm gonna mute my mic for a while. So as you can see, in this case, this will still work even if this is outside, right? So it really doesn't matter, right? Which is kind of cool. How about if we now inline this? Let's see what happens. Now we get this error which we weren't getting before. Expected calibration. So what did we get instead? I see. I see what might actually be happening. Honestly, I think I see. Yeah. Let me tell you guys what's happening. I totally forgot because, we're only picking one, right? I definitely know what's happening. I'm very confident of that. So when we're picking and we've got vector, we're picking if it's identifier, then we use that. In this case, this is not going to pick this as an expression because remember, when you're dealing with the abstract syntax tree, your code basically, when you're dealing with the token stream, it's not really evaluating them as sort of like a logical grouping, if you may. Rather, it's evaluating your syntax tree as a token stream by parsing them one by one, right? So in this case, when we say pick identifier, right? This is an identifier, VEC is an identifier, right? So if you're thinking about working in macros and you're sort of thinking about logical grouping every time, rather than thinking about the smallest bit that fits or that actually corresponds to whatever you're parsing, they're gonna be getting it wrong. So in this case, when we go to pick, we say like pick, if it's an identifier, just parse it as an identifier. If it's an expression, pick it as an expression. However, after parsing this in, I will say check if this is an identifier. What it actually does is to check, stream the token that fulfills that condition until it doesn't. And this does, this does, this does. So if you take these three together, it's actually a valid identifier, right? So that condition still gets fulfilled. Like it sees this as the next token stream, VEC, as an identifier. So we're not even using the expression at the same time. So how can we fix this? We can tell it that, okay, and check that, let's say we pick that the next token is going to be a parenthesis. So after you check the identifier, immediately it should be followed by a parenthesis, right? And that way you see it's going to solve the problem, because this condition in this case now would not be fulfilled, in which case it's then going to be like fall back to parsing it as an expression, and that should solve our problem. Let's see. Yeah, I'm pretty confident that is going to solve the problem. We might have to reload the editor, and let's see, Rust reload workspace. If that doesn't work, then we'll restart the editor. So that should solve that problem. So we have the iterable. I'm sort of thinking of doing the same thing for if-else statement. Let's see an example here. Okay, we just say if condition blah blah blah. So I believe we're just using expression right off the bat. But it might also be possible to do something like if, let's say, cont equals balance greater than them, and it should be possible to do something like this, right? It doesn't work, right? So we might use the same thing there. Actually, we might use the same thing. So anyway, that's for iterable. So let's check, does that work? But one case where I fear that may not work is, what if let's test with this. Let's say okay, let's put this in a parenthesis. Let's see. Does that also work? As a matter of fact, I'm just gonna restart the ID because I want to be very sure it works. Then after this, we're probably gonna write tests, and I think we can merge this PR after the test. We do a little bit of refactoring, then I would like us to merge this PR because it's been open for a minute. It's taking a while to load. So we might want to do the same thing for if statement. And what can we then call this? I think we shouldn't need to abstract this, because if we do, it might run into the problem down the line. So what I would do instead is just go to for loop, if else statement, and just copy the code. If they seem generic enough down the line, then we can dry it up and abstract it. But I don't want to do something hasty, create a hasty abstraction. Okay, so after this, we're gonna write a couple of tests, and after the test, I'm gonna merge this PR, post post it on LinkedIn and Twitter. Then I'm going to improve the migration tooling API, and after that, maybe improve a couple of things here and there, add a few tests, do a few refactoring here and there, and we should be good to go. I think it should be ready for alpha. After that, I don't want to not release this soon. Let things just delay and drag on. So let's see. So that's able to check out. Papa. But why we don't have the parentheses? We can say that the next token is parentheses or it's brace. So let's check names. Yeah. So if we do this, it's gonna work. But without the parentheses, it's not gonna work. So what's a good heuristic to use for that? We can say that the next is parentheses or is brace. Yeah. So but brace. Let's actually restart it because we want to be sure that works. Um, so does this check out? Does it work? Let's find out. Okay, this gives us query chain. So what happens if we use this? Does it still work? Yeah, it works. I think so. Yeah. What if we inline this then? Does it work? Yeah, it does work. What if we take away that? Does it work? Yeah, it does work. I'm sure there are some exceptions, but I don't think those things actually do matter so much. So you can think of like having a function, or even like you can think of having a closure, let's say something like this, and you're trying to do something like this, right? It's not gonna work because yeah, it's gonna say, oh, ident if it's open if it's parenthesis, this is parenthesis, right? So it's gonna try to check this as an identifier, right? So what can we do if we wanna circumvent that? We can say that and input pick 3 that the token is not parenthesis. So we can say that the third one is not. Let's say the tokens we've got. So we can say that the third one is not parenthesis, because if the third token is going to be parenthesis, then we can just assume that it's a function invocation, in which case it should be an expression, right? Yeah, so we might have to restart this again. I'm gonna see. So there's something I actually need to confirm. Does it take both the open and closing parentheses? Because this is that looks like it to me. So So, what other heuristics could we use here? Um, oh, I'm gonna have to mute. So something that comes to my mind is we could actually first, so we could check. Let's do so there are two different ways. The first one could be like checking input dot pick. We pick that it's an identifier, and then we pick 2 is brace. So that's the first. If it's not surrounded by parentheses, if it's surrounded by parentheses, it's gonna be we're gonna get it's gonna be ident, then it's gonna be parentheses and brace. So it's gonna be parentheses and brace. Second is gonna be parentheses. Yep. So is either this or that, right? Then we can say it's an identifier. However, in the case where we have something like this, so this is gonna be identifier brace, and yeah, so it's gonna fulfill the second one and run into an issue again. So let's see. So so one thing we could also do, but if we so let's go down there. So we go parentheses. Oh, actually that's interesting. When we check the parentheses, we we get the content of it, and when we get the content of it, actually, oh yep, Yep. So we're parsing the content of the parentheses, right? At the end of that, actually, it should be empty. So that should be empty. However, if there are no parentheses, obviously, it's not gonna be. So we can use that to our advantage and say, uh, it's either we've got like the identifier, and when we pick two, there shouldn't even be anything, right? So this should be empty. Let's see, a good way to, I mean, we could just check. I guess we could check. Let's see. Token Picard brace. It should be empty after parsing this. So pick two should be not. So when we have this, it should not be followed by braces, right? It actually shouldn't be. So without the without the bracket, actually, so it's gonna be the first and the brace, right? That if you don't have the parentheses, so it's gonna be identifier. And it's also gonna be the brace to the open braces where we're gonna have the code block of body, right? When we have the parentheses, actually, what happens is we have the identifier, and subsequently it should be empty because we're checking by the content. So what's a good way to so input pick two, in this case it should be empty. I'm gonna restart this. Oh my god. Um, so, oh yeah, we're cleaning the reference and not the stuff itself. Okay, yeah, so supposed to fork it. Let's check the fork. So what we're gonna do is we are gonna parse identifier from the fork, right? And we're gonna check it. So after we fork it, right? We have the identifier out. It should either be empty. So let's say fork is empty, or if it's not empty, it means like that's a situation where we're not using parentheses, so because you have the open bracket stuff. So we can just say fork. If it's not empty, I'll tell you what I mean now. Let me just implement it. Then we can pick the next should then be token brace, right? So what did I do? When we parse the identifier, we are checking if it's empty. Why would that be? In this case, when we parse out the parentheses out of this, we have the content of the parentheses. After we parse out the iteration or iterator, and we parse out the in keyword, we're left with the iterable contents, right? And after we parse that out, this content of the parentheses should actually be empty, right? So in this case, after we've parsed out the iterable, in this case an identifier, it should be empty. However, if we don't have the parentheses, right, you see after the keyword we just parse the iterable, then that should be followed by a braces, right? And that's why we're doing a check here that it's either it's empty or after parsing the identifier, if it's empty, then we can tell that that's an identifier, or if it's followed by braces, then we can tell that it's an identifier. That's just heuristic because it's possible for you to probably have a code block that evaluates to an expression. So you could have like let a equals 5, a plus 6, right? But I don't know why you would want to do that. So I think we could go with something like this, and let's get out and recheck it. All right, so let's check that. It does seem to work. Let's check. Oh, that was a mistake. Yep. So that does seem to work. Let's check. Oh my god. As you can see, it's looking promising. Let's check the so you see now it's taking this literally as a function invocation. That is cool. So that's good. And I mean yep, as you can see that works. So that was a good heuristic to use there, and I'm gonna do the same thing for if else statement. If else, so that's typically for the expression. So we can just rather call that a variable. That's gonna be expression. I believe the same thing should work here. I'm intentionally leaving it that way. So we have expression here, and yep. Now we go to if example here. So let's say this is now assigned to a variable, and let's call that, I don't know, first condition. We can do something like this. Yeah, we surely can fix that. So what we're gonna do is let's go to wherever we're implementing conditionals. Let's go. So actually what I want is get param. So that's actually what I want. So in this case, we want this to eventually evaluate something like this. Yeah. And the beauty of this is, at least I think this should also work. Couldn't find names in this scope. Well, names could find you. And I think that does the magic. So now we can also do some assignment right there. Ooh. I'm pretty happy with this. So what I'm gonna do now is oh my god, I'm sorry guys. What I'm gonna do, I'm gonna commit this and we could probably start writing tests. Oh my god, we could start writing tests. This gets triggered when I talk, so I should probably keep my mouth shut. It's crazy. This has been going on for over a week. Anyway, I'm quite happy with that. Let's see. See that we can do some crazy stuff, right? The beauty of this is we couldn't just do something like this. It's not gonna work. It has to be an operation. So guys, I think we've got something pretty cool here. Here we can even say I need to determine probably another pair if we want to allow else let's score equals 100, then select, so we can just go crazy. Keep going crazy. I think this is a good place to probably stop. I've got some other stuff I want to do, like for example block. I want to make block like more sophisticated in the sense that right now the way the heuristic we're using for block is if it ends with return statement, if a query query ends with a return keyword, then we say it's a block. However, if a return keyword exists in any scope, we should be able to mark that as a block. So you can imagine if you say if this is this, then it's a block, right? And that's something I also want to do. So basically, we're gonna check if there is a return keyword within the within the syntax tree other than the end, then we can assume that that is a block. If that is the case, rather than just doing it for the ending of the statement, but we can do that in another PR. I'm just gonna commit this and add some tests. So what's a good thing to use here? Support using ident and even a function invocation as a trivial if a loop and expression statement. I'm just gonna I'm gonna leave that way. So now let's add the test, then do some cleanups. Before that, let's see if this all works. Looks like it works. What about with braces? Works. A place where I think it might, where we have something like this. Oh my gosh. Replace that with an open bracket. Does that also work? Okay. I probably should just support one approach, but whatever. I have a bunch of tests I need to write, and I'm gonna do it here. So I'm gonna write. Perhaps I could just do some snapshot tests for this and call it a day, because it's gonna be quite complex anyway. So query turbo if so I can have like query turbo with if else statement and for loop together. So this can be one. For example, I can do query chain insta assert snapshots query chain. I can say it's raw build. I can also have like fine tune perhaps. So we're just gonna run that, and I like to be done with this because I don't like my PRs being open for too long. Um, how long have I been streaming? I know I've been sick through the stream, but I just wanted to work and I still wanted to document this. It's part of the process, isn't it? Regardless. Um, so I'm just gonna test this, and I think I'm gonna open a PR. I'm pretty sure there are a couple of things, a couple of other stuff we could still do. The beauty of this is, you could actually even have a within a within an if-else statement, you could have a for loop, which we do here, and within a for loop, you could also have an if-else statement. So we could do if um if balance greater than 50. You can just go crazy however you want, which I think is cool. This is a very complex query. Checked our compile time, auto bound for you, and it feels like you're writing the normal stuff. So that's quite exciting. So this should now work. This if we do something like this, it should work. Yeah. We can run the tests.